Hey everyone. As you can tell, I'm back in LA for my Colorado trip, and within hours of me being back, I kind of had this realization, which is I don't like people enough to want to stay in a big city my whole life. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not me saying that I don't like people in general. It's more so that I like kind people, good people, or people who work on themselves, or basically just people who care about others enough to treat them with respect and kindness. And there unfortunately aren't a lot of these people in big cities because you don't really have to be that way to survive in big cities. Whereas in small towns, you kind of need to be kind, or at least it's in your best interest because you'll reap more benefits from it. So here's what I mean. In big cities, there are so many freaking people that you can get away with being an a-hole because quite often when you go to stores or other places like that, the workers or even the other customers aren't going to remember you because so many people live in that area that how could they, right? Like there's so many people that you could visit that store every day for a week and you'd encounter people you will never see ever again. So that's a phenomena in big cities, and with that means you don't really need to focus on being kind to others because there's no consequences to being an a-hole if people aren't going to remember you enough to say, hey, watch out for that guy, they're a dick. But unless you frequent places often, that's really just not going to happen. You may just have one-off experiences where people don't like interacting with you, but that's usually not enough for people to change their entire personality to become a better person. But in small towns, things are a bit different. Because the population sometimes can be so low that people will remember you, or even news spreads quickly, rumors about people will spread quickly, you're kind of incentivized to be a nicer, kinder person. Because if you're a dick, news is going to spread that, hey, everybody, watch out for this guy named Josh because they're a dick. Like, you don't want to interact with him. And nobody wants to be that person. So that's a phenomenon that happens in small towns. It kind of just makes people be a bit more kind. But even just beyond that, when you're surrounded by lots of people to the point where you know you're not going to see these people ever again, most likely, it just desensitizes you to other human beings. Rather than looking at people and thinking, oh, there's a human being who has goals and dreams, aspirations and insecurities and loved ones in their lives and so on and so forth, you can't really think that way anymore because it's a bit too draining. So instead, in big cities, when you see a lot of people, you just go, oh, there are people over there who may actually be nuisances in me going about my day, because maybe one of them will be driving in traffic in front of me going really slowly, or maybe one of them will be in front of me in a grocery store with a bunch of things in their carts. Now I have to wait for them. See what I mean? It basically trains you to view other people as nuisances, or just like they don't really matter because there's so many of them that you don't have the emotional capacity to care about them all. Like literally you can't. You would be drained if you did that, right? So that's how big cities kind of condition people to not care about each other. But in small cities, since the populations, well, I should say small towns, since the populations are so much lower, you can care about other people because there aren't thousands or millions of them to the point where it's too difficult to do that. In small towns, when you go to a coffee shop, the same workers are likely going to be there most of the time, as will the same customers for the most part. So you can get to know them. And even when you're just going around town, you'll likely see your neighbors pretty often in stores and other places like that. And if you don't see them, well, gossip spreads quickly, like I already said, because your neighbors are going to be going around doing things. They're going to have clubs and activities they engage in. And if they really like you, they'll spread the word that you're a great person. Or if you're a dick, they'll spread the word about that too. So naturally, the way that news spreads in small towns makes it so people are just a bit kinder. But going back to that whole concept of desensitizing yourself to other people, in small towns that doesn't really happen because the populations are small enough that you don't get desensitized from others. Since you likely will be seeing familiar faces rather often, you don't get desensitized to the other humans that you encounter because instead you say, oh, there's my buddy Jim, I remember him, or there's Fred, my neighbor, and he's out shopping today, or whatever it may be. But in big cities, that just doesn't happen. So putting all those things into perspective has made me just appreciate smaller cities or smaller town life way more than big city life. Beyond even just like the beauty that naturally occurs in smaller towns because there's less concrete jungle. There aren't skyscrapers everywhere and big buildings that are gray and just ugly to look at. Instead, there's often a lot of nature and wildlife in them. Like where my parents are in Colorado is pretty much a rural area, and they have deer come into their yard all the time, and it's really cool to see. You don't really get that here in LA because everything's built up. There's like no dirt or nature anywhere really. Like there's no place for deer and other wildlife to run around really. The only wildlife you see are animals that have adapted to the city. So you get pigeons and skunks and opossums and raccoons, and where I'm at in Palos Verdes, occasionally you see foxes, but that's like it for the most part. It's just birds pretty much. You occasionally will see like mammals, but not too many of them. But then in those rural areas, there's just life everywhere and nature everywhere, and I've just come to appreciate that so much more than city life. And then top it all off with, I just want to be around kind people, and I don't feel like I see that too often here in the big cities. Don't get me wrong, it does exist, certainly. It's just, there's so much less of it, and after a while it just kind of takes a toll on my soul, I guess. Like I've lived here my whole life, so 28 years, and I guess I'm just sick of it at this point. I'm just tired of people tailgating me, tired of people cutting others off in traffic, tired of people treating waiters like crap, or people in grocery stores talking smack to the cashiers and having no patience whatsoever. I'm just tired of seeing rudeness and unkindness. I want to go somewhere that has people who genuinely care about each other way more than in big cities. So I guess this whole video has just been one long rant about me, because I already, within hours of being back in LA, am realizing why I enjoy going away from LA so freaking much. Because every time I come back, there's just always somebody who's just being rude and acting like they're the center of the universe, and it just always puts me off from this place entirely. So yeah, I don't know what my whole point with this video is. I guess it's just some insight into why I prefer smaller town life, or just anywhere that puts you more in close contact with nature, whereas cities don't do that. And I just prefer places with kinder people, and up till now I just haven't met enough of them in big cities to make me want to stay in them. So yeah, take from this video what you will, I guess. Hopefully at the bare minimum it's been somewhat entertaining to see my perspective on this, but I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like content like this, be sure to subscribe for more. Otherwise, leave a comment and like for the video, for the algorithm, and I will see you guys in the next one. Arrivederci!